Good evening and welcome to SPORLITIKS, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker who's off tonight, and my cousin Todd. Full show for you tonight. Bill Barr says he is willing to testify against Donald Trump at or about the January 6th trial. President Trump, as you know, pleaded not guilty to his third indictment of charges for efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. In Major League Baseball, Guardians' Jose Ramirez rips White Sox Tim Anderson after the fight, saying he's been disrespecting the game. The fight occurred in the 6th inning, with Anderson getting his clock cleaned. The Times of Israel says, Lapid, we had a deal with Netanyahu on an overhaul last week. And we'll talk about what happened with that. The U.S. women's soccer team exits, loses at the Women's World Cup after a penalty defeat, and they lost to Sweden. A judge in Texas temporarily exempts women with complicated pregnancies from the Texas abortion ban. Imran Khan arrested after Pakistan court sentences that ex-prime minister to 3 years in jail. They can't find him right now, or they can't get to him because he's sitting in a Pakistani jail. President Trump seeks to reestablish secure facility at Mar-a-Lago to review classified evidence and more, if we can fit it in. First up, Aguna with Women's World Cup soccer. Aguna.
Well,
we lost.
Yeah, and we lost in PKs by one penalty kick. It's kind of ironic too, because Nigeria, their women's team, lost to England. Same thing, except it wasn't as close in PKs. It was 4-2 versus 5-4. Yeah, it's kind of to lose in the first round like that in the field of 16 was very disappointing for U.S. women's soccer. I think that because the women's soccer national team had put soccer on the map from a woman's perspective worldwide, and for them to go into the World Cup and get bounced the way they did, again, they just couldn't find the back of the net. They let Sweden stick around. Now, Sweden, in all honesty, is a very good team, but you expected the U.S. women's national team to go further than what they did, unfortunately. But there are still some really good teams that are still in it. Japan, Sweden, of course. You got the Netherlands, France. So there are some pretty strong teams that have advanced to the group of 8. But it wasn't really a good day for soccer. And of course, the Nigerian team lost to England, and they kind of dominated the whole match. They just couldn't get that one goal, and then it went to PKs. In PKs, anything can happen, and they lost by a differential of 2-4. So good showing. In fact, this is, I think, only the second or third time they've made it to the next round. But I think from a global perspective, I think the Women's World Cup soccer is really – it's really good to see some of the other teams, especially teams that typically wouldn't field a women's team, do well and participate. And so I think it's going to be good for the sport overall.
What I found interesting, Aguna, let me share my screen, is what the former president said. Former President Trump blames Megan Rapinoe. He blames wokeness for U.S. women's soccer team loss and trolls Megan Rapinoe and says USA is going to hell. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, we can see it. It's not shocking considering, the former president is never, he wants to steal the limelight no matter what. Again, to be a populist and to use that to go against it, I think this is kind of un-American. It's interesting how he's trying to leverage wokeness, culture wars in order to somehow explain, the women's soccer team not advancing. I think it's actually pretty sickening if you ask me, because again, these are sports bring people together. Even if you don't agree on some of the political stances or why people
Absolutely.
are choosing to express themselves, you should at least, we're all Americans first. You should be always rooting for the USA, no matter what, whether you agree or not. That's what makes the country great, is being able to come together around teams no matter what. And so I think, for those who still support the former president, and to see this as an opportunity to criticize a women's team, again, it's not just about this one player. These are women that have worked their whole lives to get to this point to perform on the stage. And so to make that more about wokeness or something, some political gain, and not about the game and the accomplishments of the women even to get to that point, I think it's, again, this is just show me who you are, I should believe you. And if he does that to the women's national team, what do you think he's going to do to you? What do you think when you're no longer useful for him? This is just showing how the former president is just not right for America.
So I was going to say, Stephen, I'm sorry, Keith. If you look at this, it says former president said the shocking and totally unexpected loss by the U.S. women's soccer team to Sweden is fully emblematic of what is happening to our once great nation under crooked Joe Biden. Do you think he's right?
Yes, he's right. I mean, what is
why? Just because he's the president, you think he's right? I thought Aguna said sports brings us together.
No, but it doesn't bring us together when one of the teams. That's why I would ask Aguna. These women, when did they praise the United States? When did they give honor to the United States? I mean, I'm talking about that one woman, mostly Rapine or how do you pronounce her name?
So let me break down what you're telling me. You're saying that these women have to give praise to the United States in order to represent the United States on the national stage, and giving praise to them. I mean, their mere presence is giving praise to the United States. Is a reflection of the culture here and how, we all can come together and do great things if you work hard enough. Some of these girls have been playing, these young women have been playing since they were 3 years old in this great country. So their mere presence, I would say, is giving praise to the United States. And for you to look at it from a cultist, populist perspective just reflects the naivety of youth.
No, it reflects the idea of patriotism, that you give honor to
your form of patriotism.
And this is the country that they're playing in, and for the privilege of being here in this country and playing for the United States. They represent the United States. Okay, so that's why you give honor to the United States.
So what have they done not to give honor to the United States?
Well, the lady Rapine, she took a knee during the national anthem.
And who is that to say it's not giving honor to the United States? That's not why.
No.
Just highlighting social issues which have made this country great. Again, this country has evolved from a long way. It's come a long way, and it continues to grow. So just doing some type of display to highlight a social issue is not anything. It's not going against the United States. That's something you're internalizing because you're self-conscious about it. At the end of the day, that's praising the United States, because in the United States, we can voice our distaste, or we can highlight, we can protest. The Boston Tea Party, is that not giving honor to the United States? Again, you're cherry picking, and you're trying to use a social political issue in a sports venue for political gain. As an American, you should be ashamed of yourself.
The Boston Tea Party was standing against the rights that were being intervened against, the rights of the people. What these people are not doing.
The pure expressionism, you're being able to express discontent. What was civil rights? Was civil rights dishonoring the United States? Was fighting for civil rights?
Let me also say that she, being gay, she should at least recognize the fact that being gay in a country that has accepted gays, apparently, she should at least be happy about that.
So Keith, can you Can you name any players on the U.S. national team besides the one that your cultist leader told you to be mad at? I mean,
No.
is this where we're evolving to?
No.
Because the fearless leader has said that this is a reflection of wokeness, because this fascist populist leader who's using women's sports as a political pawn, you want to repeat that? And you as an American are okay with that?
She, you know the old saying that one apple can spoil the whole cart. So this one person who you don't like discounts the accomplishments of all those women on the team who been playing sports since they were 4 or 5 years old.
So let me get Todd in. Can I get Todd in?
That's what you're saying? That's what you choose to cherry pick? That's a reflection of you, man.
Can I get Todd in?
Leftists. They do it all the
time.
What are you
Cousin
talking
Todd,
about?
if you look at the statement on the screen, Cousin Todd, if you look at the statement on the screen, it is from the former President Donald Trump. He says, what are your comments about that?
Crooked Joe Biden has to do with women's sports. I mean, come on.
I can't see that. And I think I can't see
Let me read it for you. The shocking and totally unexpected loss by the U.S. women's soccer team to Sweden is fully emblematic of what is happening to our once great nation under crooked Joe Biden.
Okay, that makes no sense to any thinking person. One thing would have nothing to do with the other. They lost. It's as simple as that. Now, how you twist that around, you must have a sick mind and come up with she's gay and she didn't bow to the flag.
That's right.
She took a knee in protest because what's happening in America is unfair to people that look like you and your mother.
How many countries accept?
And so I'm speaking. Hey, crazy, I'm speaking.
I'm asking.
So, I don't care what you're asking. I'm asking, why did your mother have you?
Who cares?
So anyway,
that has nothing to do with Donald Trump saying that about wokeness and the soccer player.
Donald Trump saying wokeness in the soccer player is sheer stupidity. One thing has nothing to do with the other. They lost. He's saying they lost because of Joe Biden. Are you kidding me? And you have this as a serious topic because of this quack? Anyway,
Again, this is a time where you can reflect as a nation and say, hey, you know what? Women's soccer is going forward. We need to step up our game and be more competitive. It's not a time to say, okay, because I didn't like the actions of one player, I'm going to discount this sport that's come such a long way and these people that have accomplished so much to be on the team. I mean, that's your critique of America. I would argue, Keith, that you hate America because you hate how it's evolved and you hate what it's become.
Well,
because the people who fought in World War II, Vietnam, all the founding fathers, they fought for her to have the right to protest. That's what they fought for. That's what they died for. So to say that she shouldn't do it, you're being un-American.
Well,
all right, so let me move on.
Shouldn't she be proud to be here and gay? Shouldn't she be proud?
How do you know she's not proud?
Well, she doesn't bow to the flag.
No. We don't bow to the flag.
He took that and ran with it. Yes, he will.
When was the last time you bowed to the flag?
When this master told him to.
Who bows to the flag?
And why are you doing like this? You never served in the military.
You just want to be angry. You just want to be angry for no reason.
And you never served in the military.
I gotta move on. Thank you.
Wait a minute.
Look at this.
You never served in the military, and the draft was out when you were a young guy. So why didn't you serve? You were either a jailbird or a dope addict. Which was it?
Just all I want you to do is love the country, Keith. At some point in your life, love
and
the country.
serve your country. Do something for you. Why didn't you serve in the military?
When you love America, you love all of America. You don't just love your idea of America.
It was Bone Spurs.
The flag.
Then you should appreciate her right to protest.
Okay, please look at the screen. Excuse me. All right. This is Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball has suspended. Now, look at this picture. And what I like about this picture, Cousin Todd, is that is a good old-fashioned fist fight. You know what I mean?
All right.
I hate fights anyway, but if you're going to have a fight, have a good old-fashioned fist fight as opposed to someone using some sort of horrible instrument to harm another person.
And two black
Wouldn't you
men.
rather have a good old-fashioned fist fight instead of having someone use a knife, a gun, or something else to harm someone? Just use your hands.
Yeah, two black men too. Wonderful.
Why does
Cousin
Tom
Todd.
keep saying that? I'm wondering why Tom keeps saying two black men, two black men.
His
He
name
never says
is Keith. His
Oh,
name is
I
Keith
meant-
Todd,
I
and you
meant-
know that.
I meant Keith. No. I slip of the tongue. He never says that when hockey players are fighting. He never says two white boys, two white boys.
Nah,
See, he's brainwashed.
nah, that's
And
not going to
he's-
help him get into white man's heaven. He's trying to get into white man's heaven, so he has to point out,
Better
he has
than
to
go
point out
black
the
man. I ain't going to black man's hell.
Okay, so Todd,
Can you imagine
go.
what
comment
he
There
on
you
just
this
go.
said?
fight. Todd,
Wait,
you want to
wait,
comment on
Jason.
this fight for baseball, please,
No,
Todd?
what I want to
Todd,
comment
Todd,
on is what
Todd,
Keith just said
Todd,
that
Todd,
you're not
Todd,
listening to.
Todd.
You're not listening.
We're listening
Keith
to.
just said he'd rather go to white man's heaven, which there is no such thing. Keep that in mind. There's
In his
no
mind.
such thing as white man's heaven. Rather go there than the black man's hell. Do you mean what you're living here on earth in your black body?
I mean, the irony of it, black people don't want to go to black man's hell. I don't even know what he's talking about, but it just sounds good to him.
Well, yeah, because he hates
I don't
black
want to go to black
people.
man's hell either.
Because he hates his mother
Can we get
and
back to the
anybody that
subject?
looks like his mother. That includes himself. This is called self-loathing.
Oh, that was so
He,
funny.
he thinks he's a unicorn. People like Keith, they like attention. They like to go against the grain in order to get attention. So
I guess-
that's all he's doing. I mean, hey, I understand it. It's cool.
Can we get back to the topic?
Can we get back to the subject, please, Cousin Todd? You're supposed
Okay,
to talk
go
about
ahead.
the fist fight
Go ahead,
against,
Todd.
with the baseball player. So let me bring this back in and
Okay.
add some context to it. Thank you. Major League Baseball. The Tim Anderson's decision to pick a fight with Jose Ramirez cost him more than a sore jaw. The Chicago shortstop was suspended 6 games and Ramirez for 3 games by Major League Baseball for throwing punches and touching off a lengthy wild brawl between the White Sox and the Guardians on Saturday night. Cousin
Right, I
Todd, do you want
thought-
to comment?
I thought Ramirez started that fight by saying something about disrespectful towards the game.
I think he said that
look it
after the fact. I thought he said something.
Oh, that
like
was after the fact?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't use any weapons, and they never seem to make a big deal out of it when hockey players fight. So now I'm not really that interested in baseball anymore since there's very few blacks in it. I've gotten
What do you mean?
uninterested.
Plenty of blacks in baseball. Why would you say that?
Oh my gosh. Are you confusing
And the ones
blacks
that
with
are in it are
Hispanics?
fighting each other. The ones that are
Are
in it
you
fighting each other, according to
confusing,
Keith.
Stacy? Are you confusing blacks with Hispanics? They don't like
Color.
that.
What's the difference? What's
Any
the difference?
people
They're
of
color.
colored.
Ma'am,
There are people of color.
ask a Hispanic if they think they're black, and you'll get slapped across the mouth.
Rebuke me for citing the fact that they were both men of color, and now you're going to make color an issue. Okay.
No. You said, and they're both black. They're both black.
Well, they
See,
look black to me.
He didn't look at their last names.
No,
was just-
of course
he was-
not.
he
He
was being
just sees it.
prejudiced.
He just
You never
sees
heard of
one
a
thing.
black Hispanic?
Coon.
You never met black Hispanics or
Oh,
black.
get out of my
Latino?
face. Anyway,
You never had.
his
You think
You
everybody-
know that
he's
wasn't the
called-
first thing to your mind, Keith. That wasn't the
I
first
guess
thing
you
on
never.
your mind.
Yeah.
know. I guess.
Get at it. He's just
Hey.
trying to cover now because
live
you all recognize that he's an Uncle Tom racist.
You
Yeah,
don't live
two
in
black men. No, they weren't.
you don't live in Los Angeles. I forgot.
Oh,
Okay.
listen at
So
that.
here's the thing. I don't think they should have been fighting. Again, I think emotions are so high nowadays that
In all sports.
in all sports, I get that, but baseball, I mean, it's really a no contact sport per
Oh,
se.
get out of here. Don't
But
start
you
this.
don't want kids to think. Again, I'm thinking. I have a son. I have kids that play sports. You don't want kids thinking that you can resolve things by fighting in the middle of games and things like that. Been there, seen that, didn't like it then, don't like it now, don't like
Right.
grown adults doing it. So they just got to be aware. And again, I know they're athletes. They're playing at the highest level. They are in the major leagues. Emotions run wild. Sometimes they get the best of themselves, but you got to lead by example. Not too many people on the planet are in the position to be where you are. And so you'd hate to think that, again, I get it. They're human. I get it. They're human. I get that. But they are responsible for governing themselves accordingly. So you just this is one of those things, because again, you can't hold Trump accountable for the way he's acting and not look at these grown men and say, hey, you know what? They need to do the same thing. Now, granted, they're not the president or the former president. I hold the same standards.
I agree with Aguna. I mean, at least athletes should be men of discipline, men and women of discipline. They ought to discipline, control their bodies. I mean, that's what it's all about. You're training.
I mean, it took discipline for them to get there. So, I mean, again, you just
and also, like I said, I don't want to cherry pick. So that's in all sports, but it was a little short fight, and no harm, no foul. Unlike what I see in hockey fights.
Oh,
there's blood everywhere.
You're supposed to fight in hockey, but Todd, you don't know anything about sports.
Wait,
so of course,
you're
that's
supposed
what you
to fight in hockey. You are so ignorant until it's a shame.
Ma'am. But you know nothing about hockey.
You're supposed to fight in sports. Where did you come from? Keithtown?
I think you're supposed to fight in hockey.
What do you mean you're supposed to fight in hockey? You're not supposed to fight in hockey. Is that a boxing match?
You're not supposed to fight.
Do you have anything for the NFL? Because Todd doesn't know what he's talking about.
I absolutely do.
Why are you telling the audience that you're supposed to fight in hockey? Who knows what young person might be listening to your dumb behind talking about? You're supposed to fight in hockey. Are you supposed to fight in ice skating?
Hey, be nice, man.
Dang,
why don't you
man,
ask
what's
your
going
sister?
on, Todd? Whoa, man, come on, man. Hey, button up your shirt and your mouth, Todd. Jeez. You're trying.
Wait.
You're coming out. You're coming out.
Go ahead, Aguna. We're going to move on to NFL now,
okay.
please.
All right. Okay. Yeah. NFL training camp. Over 50,000 fans at Eagle Open practice. They raised money for autism. Now, unlike Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts has only thrown like 2 interceptions in camp, so it's good balance. It will be very interesting to see if he can take another step forward this year. Again, last year, Jalen Hurts took a step forward and took the team to the Super Bowl. If he takes a step forward this year, stays healthy, there's no telling how many championships he can bring to Philadelphia. So I'm really excited about that. Real interesting. They signed some linebackers this past week. Howie Roseman went out and got Cunningham, and I forgot the other guy's name. Miles Jack, I believe from Jacksonville, former Jacksonville linebacker, to solidify the linebacker core. So not a lot of holes. You got veteran presence. You got a lot of young guys coming up that look like the Kobe Dean and the rest of the Georgia Bulldogs that are on the Eagles, looking for them to make it step up, contribute. Jalen Carter, their first-round draft pick, is unblockable, is what was described in with the second and third team reps. So
what about that Beast Davis from Georgia on Philadelphia team?
Yeah, so Jordan Davis is in his second year, so looking for him to contribute right next to Fletcher Cox, and of course you're bringing back Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, and then of course you have
what's his name?
Rookie
Randall Cunningham.
Quiet, Todd. So you got AJ Brown, Smith. So the Eagles are looking pretty good. Now, one of the things that's interesting this offseason, no NFC East team has won back-to-back division titles since the Eagles did it back in like 2004. So we're going in coming off a Super Bowl, loss, but a division title. So it'll be interesting to see if they can repeat, which no team has done. Now, the Cowboys, of course, are the favorite to challenge the Eagles. But again, a lot of hype. Zach Martin is holding out in Cowboys camp because he wants to be the highest paid lineman. He's not right now. He's number 2. He wants to be number 1. And that line is older. They have an overrated defense. I don't trust Diggs at corner. He tends to bite on the double move. So Cowboys are coming in with a lot of hype. The Eagles are coming in with a little bit of hype too, but they've also retooled. And then you got dark horses like the Giants and the Redskins or the Commanders who, with Eric Bieniemy, I know there's some talk out of Commanders camp that he's being too intense. I don't know what that means. That may mean that players aren't buying into his system as the OC for the Commanders. And then, you have New York who Saquon Barkley was holding out. The running back was holding out, but he ended up coming to camp. So New York may be able to sneak in there and challenge for the division as well. But it's very exciting because just think, from here to February, you're going to have football every week. So what better time of the year?
The Cowboys are a threat.
It's a great time of year, Todd. You may learn something. Maybe listen to Keith a little bit. Because you and Keith are coming from the same place when it comes to sports. Maybe both I can bring you guys along on this journey. But from now until February, football. College football, pro football is going to be a great time.
Not college football, but I don't think the Cowboys are a threat, really. As a matter of fact, I think you got me on now. I don't think the Cowboys are a threat to the Eagles. I think the Braves can beat the Cowboys.
Oh, Jesus. Thank you, Todd.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. For all that you are and all that you will be.
So you want to talk about Bieniemy? Is it Bieniemy? It's
Eric Bieniemy,
head coach down there at the Commanders. Is it
Eric Bieniemy? Yeah. So all you guys, I don't know if our viewers remember Bieniemy from Colorado days, in which he was just a college superstar. But now he went on to Kansas City, coached under Andy Reid, and of course won a couple Super Bowls there. Now he's the OC for the Commanders. And we all know what's going on. Rivera is on his last leg. Rivera hasn't been a very successful coach. I mean, he's got to 1 Super Bowl, but he's only had 1 or 2 maybe winning seasons in his career. Very defensive minded. You're looking to bring in sorry, my dog is over here. Looking to bring in more talent and get a little bit more younger. You're looking to get a little bit younger from a coaching perspective. And so it's interesting. He's bringing a different intensity. So I think Rivera is going to be out probably by mid-year if the Commanders lose. If the Commanders 0-6 or something like that, I expect a coaching change and Bieniemy to be named interim coach and then, of course, taking over next year. I think that's the reason why he was brought in to begin with.
Wow. So, I'll keep talking over Todd and Keith's head about this. What did we see with the SEC this season to start off?
The SPCA?
Well, it's going to be interesting because, you got teams like Alabama and Georgia, of course, are favorites, but, there's a lot of turnover. Georgia had a lot of turnover on defense, and, because they came to the Eagles. But it's still going to be the powerhouse conference in football. It's just which team rises to the top. I do see
Pac-12.
I really don't follow the Pac-12. Are you talking with Deion Sanders and Colorado in there? Now
and Stanford.
And Stanford. It will be interesting to see how Deion does. Hopefully, I don't know if his son is going to be quarterback out there. I know there's going to be a lot of hype and notoriety around him, being coach.
Yeah, but I mean, with his health, he's been having some health challenges, which, we're humans. All humans have health challenges. There's no way around it. But how can he, get past those health challenges and be an effective head coach if, he can't spend the time he needs to starting out with his team and with his assistant coaches and trainers and everyone else. You have to be there, and you have to put that time in. If you're not feeling well, how effective can you be?
Yeah, and it's a matter of time. Time is going to tell, I think. But I wish him the best. I think he well deserved, to get a head coaching job. Eventually, I see him coaching at the next level in the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see his journey. But yeah, I mean, part of it is putting in the work and being available. But then let's see if that translates to a winning culture there in Colorado. So again, you got to, when you're dealing with the Pac-10, you got to deal with recruiting, nationwide recruiting. You're dealing with a different caliber of athlete at that D1 level. And I think if anything,
D1, Todd, D1 means Division 1.
I know what D1 means. It's like a B actor.
Yeah, thank you, Todd.
You're welcome.
But no, not at all, Todd. But good try. A for effort.
He doesn't even get an A for effort. That was horrible. I don't even know if he knew what he was talking about. That's what was so funny. He didn't even know what he's talking about. He was making it up as he went.
What
Anything
a Trump
else?
supporter you are.
I'm not a Trump supporter, never have been. Anything else with, what was interesting was why Deion Sanders left his previous post. One reason was because they were stealing stuff out of his car, right?
Alleged.
Got a
I wouldn't put anything past, so
Allegedly.
It's funny. It's very ironic.
Allegedly. But
Allegedly.
I mean, that's not why. I mean, he turned that school around. I think that was a Division 2 or 3 school.
It's Division 1, Division 1A or whatever. So
that wasn't wasn't a Pac-12. It wasn't an SEC. It wasn't one of those ACC.
It's the HBCU SWAC, the Southwest versus the MEAC.
Right.
So my school, my alma mater, the South Carolina State University, is in the MEAC. And we played Deion. Deion played South Carolina State, the first Celebration Bowl for the HBCU National Championship. I know, Keith, I don't want to offend you because, yes, I mean, this is about HBCUs. And I know it's
HBCU.
For some reason that,
not LGBTQ.
Oh, my God. Historically Black college, you need to attack the diversity.
Yeah.
But we beat him, of course. We beat him in the first celebration. We didn't go back to the Celebration Bowl, but another MEAC team went, and we beat them again. The MEAC has dominated the Celebration Bowl, since Deion was there. That's why he left. He couldn't win that national title, the Black national title from HBCU, so he left. Now, ironically, we're going to play Jackson State, Deion Sanders' former team, in about 2 weeks down in Atlanta for the MEAC SWAC Challenge.
MEAC SWAC.
MEAC SWAC Challenge.
That's right. Stop talking, Todd, and let him finish. You don't know what you're talking about, Todd. Go ahead, Aguna.
Look. Okay, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be good, Stacey. All right.
Yeah, I don't know why you're letting him
in a couple weeks. So we're gonna see what Deion left behind, and more than likely we're gonna beat that behind. Okay,
so Nas is on. Nas, welcome to SPORLITIKS, where sports and politics mix and mingle. Do you want to comment on? We're talking about the NFL. We're talking about college football. We're talking about Deion Sanders' team. And I wanted to go on to talk a little bit about where Aaron Rodgers is. Did you want to talk about Deion Sanders and the type of commitment he's got to give to Colorado and whether or not he'll be able to do that being ill?
All right, what's up, y'all? Did the producer fix the microphone for me?
No. Sorry.
No, the producer is whack.
One of the times I called in, the producer put the phone outside the car as she was driving down the highway. Look, I'm sad, to hear about the situation with his health. Like, that's if they get the best quality care, so hopefully he is able to come back. But like the people who, look, it was good when he did in Jackson State, but understand when he gets to Colorado and that 0-11 team, they're about to get beat down. Right. A lot. It takes a long time to turn over a Division I program. especially if you're playing against rivals with similar D1 athletes. So, yeah, they're going to lose by a lot. And Las Vegas still taking advantage of black folks. They out there putting son up there for the Heisman with high odds and entice people to bet on it, and people are betting. Like, yeah, this is not going to be a really good season. It's going to be rough either way. But hopefully Deion is there and build this, over a few years.
Yeah, it takes time to build a team, just like it took time for the Eagles to build up for us to be number 1, number 2, go to the Super Bowl, surpass the Atlanta Falcons and Dallas Cowgirls and the New York short people, like we did. So we understand that those type of things take time, Nas.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, like with college, you see everybody like moving around. Basically, setting up for a super conference scenario. The NCAA is really not going to matter in a few years.
Are they going to get rid of those bowl games? I'm so sick of bowl games. I don't know what to do. The Chick-fil-A Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Fuzzy Bowl, the Black Bowl, the White Bowl, the Marble Bowl. Get rid of the bowls. I can't stand bowl games. I'm sick of bowl games.
Even Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's going to kind of wear out too. But they're going to keep representing it in another way, but you're still going to be talking about the
playoffs. Well, they have to have playoffs. Everyone knows they have to have playoffs. But there's a difference. Yeah. So what about Aaron Rodgers? Should he just do what Tom Brady is doing and go get a job, a lucrative contract?
No, he's going to make crazy money off the field in New York. He's going to sell a lot of merch.
No, I'm saying he's going to be able to play at the level he's played at before with these young boys. I'm not saying if he's going to make money. I'm saying, is it worth it? I think he needs to sit down like Tom Brady and go, get a big contract and, start talking about football.
Oh, no, he'll be fine. The same way Brady was protected, he'll be a little more protected, this year as the aging quarterback. They don't want you hitting him in the head or rolling around on him. You remember them throwing those crazy flags for Brady that last year? They're going to do similar things to him. He's a superstar, old guy, bringing back a terrible franchise. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a big year this year.
Aguna?
Now, next year, I don't know. This year,
bringing back old players sometimes can work.
So this is about Aaron Rodgers, right? So we'll try to. I don't know. It's almost.
I have a comment, but I'll wait.
Yes, please wait. I think that this year he's going to have. It is a lot of expectations, but that's a really tough division. The AFC East is a real tough division. So, Bills, I still think will dominate, but I think there are going to be some good games. I think the Jets at least make the playoffs.
Okay,
Cousin Todd.
I was going to say bringing back old players could be a good strategy, like Randall Cunningham, Carl Lewis, Maurice Cheeks,
Michael Sam.
Why do you have Michael Sam on your brain so hard? You and Keith are peculiar. Are you infatuated with Michael Sam?
Not at all. Not at all.
He's a distraction.
He's a distraction. Exactly.
Michael Sam, one of the first prominent ever run, because he was able to use community activism.
Dang, wait a minute. What happened to Stacy? Oh,
Stacy
man.
dropped out. She's using that Obama phone, but it really doesn't work in the big leagues. Nevertheless, I
think we got to wait and see with Aaron Rodgers. You saw what happened to Brett Favre, right? So Brett Favre, he came back. He went. Didn't he end up at the Jets? As a matter of fact, I know he went to the Minnesota, and that's when he kind of got knocked around a little bit. But he went. I thought he ended up at the Jets too. So.
Sorry, I lost the studio. Sorry about that.
Oh my gosh! Somebody said you have that Obama phone that you're using.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Nah, say that again because they didn't hear you because somehow I got cut off. You're laughing at Todd.
No, I didn't really have nothing to add on that. Just Michael Sam, something to speak to him for getting the advocacy groups to campaign for him. He ended up getting him a nice NFL job for a little bit. Now, it didn't last because he wasn't a great player, But you know what I mean? It was kind of big for getting people to be open to other people coming into the league. As much as the owners hated it, they had to kind of deal with it. So, let's look at him. Not a great player, but he got in there.
All right, let's move on to politics. Todd, please talk about what's going on. Let me share my screen. Please talk about what's going on with Israel and the deal that was made with Netanyahu. Can you see the screen? I'm sharing my screen. It says Netanyahu on overhaul last week. He caved into Levin and Veer. Todd, do you want to talk about that deal?
Well, I'm hearing an echo.
I don't hear an echo.
Does everybody else hear an echo?
Yeah, we hear it from you.
And you now. Okay, I'm just going to talk. And this is a double thing in my ear. Benjamin Netanyahu needs to stop. I have to take this out of my ear because it's a reverb. Needs to stop. And his health is not that good. And while he's still here, I think he should start trying to take care of his country instead of taking care of himself. He's putting me in the mind of Donald Trump, where you have these politicians becoming extremist, and the country doesn't like it. This is why they're continuing to protest. Okay, I think the echo is gone. They're continuing to protest. They don't like this. They know exactly what he's doing, trying to do a Trump kind of move to get in front so that he will stay president forever.
Keith, what do you think Netanyahu should have done? Should he do what Todd suggests?
Well, no, I think Netanyahu's a good man. I think he needs to stick with his principles because he's the only man to bring democracy to Israel, and they are about the best we have in the Middle East.
Why do you think that?
And Netanyahu's a good man.
Why don't you think he's encroaching on the Arab land?
No, Israel has their own land. God gave them the land, not the Arabs.
I don't know what he just said.
You guys wouldn't understand that. That's a little beyond your faith.
Little
fanatic.
So then
he says that's beyond our understanding.
So
Aguna, do you want to
anybody from Israel can come and take your house because God gave the world to them, right?
Oh, you don't understand. I'm not going to have that. I won't be baited into that unless Stacy wants to have a religious argument.
No, she doesn't.
Right.
But Todd does.
No, I don't want to argue with him at all.
God gave the land to Abraham, and Abraham passed it on. So that is the land that is Israel will be.
We're still getting the echo. We're still getting the echo, Stacey.
Yeah, we're getting an echo from you, Keith. Aguna?
Well, it's not my fault.
Well, again, I mean, Keith's point, not to Keith's point, but to Todd and Naz's point about extremism going on across globally, again, masked in some conservative populism. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing this conservative populism that's really overriding democracy. It's one thing to say, hey, stand on your principles and let the democratically elected government govern accordingly. But a lot of the things that Netanyahu is instituting are things that people of Israel don't agree with, right? So you have this representative government. Again, we're not a democracy per se in the Greek states. We have representative government, right? But the problem is because of gerrymandering and because of things where you have the small majority are actually governing the people now, and they're governing through extremism, you're not really reflecting the values or what people care about, what people want to happen.
And they're taking the power away from the judges.
Right. And so when you do that, what happens? When you take the power away from the judges, what's the residual effect of that? Basically, what you have is people, you have no balance of government. Now you have what they want to do and have no repercussions from it.
Let me ask you: is that a democracy where judges?
Okay, Keith, you can't ask him anything right now. I'm sorry. I did let you ask
Judges
him a
don't
question
make
earlier,
laws;
but
they
I've
just
got to
say
move
whether or
on.
not they're constitutional, right? If you
Nas,
don't have that
can you
balance, then you get extremism.
Nas, can you explain to people who don't understand this what the basics are of what's going on in Israel and how it could possibly seep over to the United States and what that would mean?
Seep over.
Well,
It seeped
okay,
over to them from here.
Question. Kind of piggybacking on what Aguna was saying. Authoritarians. The problem is once they get in place of power and are expected to govern, they end up running out of scapegoats. They run out of people to otherize and brutalize. And then at that point, you have to try to figure out, okay, how is the country different with them governing? And then you'll see the discord, you'll see disarray, you'll see them not be able to do normal functioning governmental things because everything is based on who you need to attack. So when you see the settlements where people are moving into people's houses and throwing their stuff outside, and we see journalists getting killed by the government, and people dismissing it and saying, "No, that was from that other people," and then not even letting people attend the funeral, threatening them with jail, and just abusing people. What ends up happening is the blowback is so fierce that you create this perpetual state of war, and those are things that could happen here. You target one group, you constantly go to battle against that group, and before you know it, not only is the rise of terrorism there, but also nobody can live a peaceful life at that point. And that's where you see, these apartheid regimes like in South Africa. This is why the wealthy were living behind barriers and, having electrified fences and, living miles and miles away from the rest of the citizenry, because that's what it becomes in that scenario. So, yeah, this is a really bad situation. The normal people there are bucking against it, but the extremists are pushing even harder. And if they're allowed to take power in the way that they want to, what we're going to see there is genocide. And like that book says, it can happen here as well.
Okay,
Exactly,
I
which
gotta
is
move
why
on.
I think we should stop supporting Israel.
To the tune of $3 billion a year, more than we give the continent of Africa, more than we give Asia. That's how much dollars there.
More than the Ukraine.
Well, that's how much of that money goes there every year.
So let's go on to former President Donald Trump's indictment. I want to share my screen. We're going to start with Keith, then Aguna, Todd, and Nas. If you look at this screen, it says, Imran Khan, arrested after Pakistan court sentences the ex-prime minister to 3 years in jail. This was an article written by Reuters on August 5th, 2023 at 12:44 p.m. by Mubashir Bukhari, Gibran Nair Pershman, and Charlotte Greenfield. Keith, this happening to a former prime minister in a country, doesn't that tell you that Donald Trump could possibly go to jail?
No, it doesn't. Because, that's another country. We're talking about the United States. We should be governed by our by what's happening to somebody else. That's to answer your question.
All right, Aguna. Pakistan is saying no man is above the law. Is there a possibility if a PM cannot be contacted right now because he was arrested and he went to jail, is that a possibility for Donald Trump?
I mean, the practical answer is yes, but given the partisan nature surrounding all things Trump, you pretty much figure that the far right extremists are going to hide behind conspiracy theories and the weaponization of the DOJ, which is what Trump has promised to do if he's reelected. So, I mean, no one should be above the law in a true democracy. Depending on the details of why the prime minister was elected, if they have a justice system.
You mean why he was convicted? You mean why he was convicted, not
Why he was
elected?
convicted. I mean, justice should be served if it's legitimate. And
Okay, so because go ahead,
Stacey,
finish
you're
your
gonna have to do
sentence. I'm
something
sorry.
about the you're gonna have to do something about the echo.
Reverb. Yeah.
I don't even hear it.
Wow.
You gotta mute yourself while we talk.
Okay.
I wonder if you should go out and come back on again while I do this little piece that I'm going to do on Trump.
No, thank you. Go ahead, Aguna.
He's
so
finished.
Yeah. So if you're looking at this logically, in any democracy, you have laws, and it's okay to bring charges against folks if there's a there, and you go through the justice system and innocent till proven guilty. But if you look at what's happening with Trump, I mean, again, where there is smoke, there's probably fire. I mean, the fact that you have all these different charges coming from different things that have gone against him, from not handling classified documents to overthrowing the government through going against Stormy Daniels, all these different things. You have to sit back and tell yourself, is this the best that the Republican Party can do? Having to defend this guy as if he's a victim.
So let me ask Cousin Todd, you see the article by thehill.com by Lawrence Forza, written August 6, 2023.
Yeah, Bill Barr
11:17 a.m.
Bill Barr says
he's willing to testify against Trump at January 6th trial.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only Bill Barr, there's a list of people that's willing to testify.
Yeah, but Bill Barr was his attorney general.
Exactly.
And Bill Barr
did an investigation. Go ahead. What said things? What?
Go ahead. Bill Barr wrote different documents to tell former President Trump how he could govern, and then for him to come out and really say he'll testify against him, that's big.
Well, I don't know if that's big or not, but Bill Barr had an investigation to find out whether there was widespread voter fraud. And he said there was no widespread voter fraud. So you lost the election. That's what he's going to testify to, that Trump knew he lost because I and other attorneys told him who work in government. Not only that, they told him in different states that he lost. Not only that, the courts told him, over 60 courts, that means 60 judges, said no, there's no evidence. So he lost. He knew he lost, and this is what these people are going to testify to. And so the excuse he's going to use is he thought he won, which is nonsense, because the only reason he did that was to try to get Pence to overturn the election. And when Pence did not bite, and we came very close because we had to rely on a weakling like Pence to do the right thing. So the fact is, when you have a madman in the White House doing all kinds of crazy things that Keith would normally say is ridiculous, but since he's been brainwashed, now he goes along with it, no matter what he does. As a matter of fact, Trump said, I could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose one voter. He was talking about Keith. Keith would find an excuse for that. Nevertheless, I believe he will be convicted of these charges, particularly the easier ones, which is the documents that he had, which he had no business having. But his followers are not lawyers or judges. They know that he was not supposed to take those papers to his house from the White House. He was no longer president, even though he.
And Cousin Todd, speaking of taking the papers from his house to the White House, you see this Hill
from the White House to his house.
I'm sorry, from the White House to his house. This Hill.com article by Rebecca Beach, written August 9th, 2023 at 4:04 p.m. says Trump seeks to reestablish secure facility at Mar-a-Lago to review classified evidence. So Nas, this article is saying, Trump is saying, hey, if we want to talk about these classified documents and the situation and talk about some of the classified documents that were at my residences in either New Jersey or Florida, I want the judge to reestablish at my residences a secure situation so that we can talk about these classified documents, even though I'm no longer president of the United States and I am an average citizen. Will the judge grant his request? If so, why? If not, why?
Yeah, I could definitely see him grant that request. And the question to
In Miami, yes.
That's the deep state is to get you. Why would you press for the deep state, so-called deep state, to have more access to press you with? There's a story that came out today that Jack Smith actually made Twitter give up Trump's DMs from his Twitter account, made Twitter give up those DMs from his Twitter account. So that information is going to come out, and Trump wasn't aware of it till today. So that's going to come out. Whatever he was saying in his DMs to other dignitaries and foreign leaders, and who knows what in the writings, like that part is going to come out. But to get to your initial question of this whole story, nations usually have a story agreed upon from their founding to how things have gone in their story, and that creates a belief system in their institutions to where someone can be jailed if they abuse the public trust in one of those positions. But in a country like this, where the origin story is not agreed upon, where the country has always been divided and there's so much strife, these things tend to become tit for tat. Hey, that party did this, so this party will do that to them. And in that way, Trump is functioning as basically an arsonist, because it's in his interest to constantly create this discord, because that gives him a better shot of not only staying out of jail, but making these charges hit him, kind of as a slap on the wrist, as opposed to what he would get in a normal legal situation. So it's to his benefit to keep driving all of this. And as far as America, like Rome had this problem. When you hear the story about Caesar crossing the Rubicon, well, that's what that was about. In Rome, typically, you were a general. When you got back to Rome, all kinds of people would bring lawsuits against you, and they would sue you in order to limit your ability and power. But Caesar shows up with his army and decides, okay, we're not doing that anymore. So when you got a situation like Trump, where he's rallying people, he's openly saying things about the prosecutor, calling Mike Pence all of these names and all of this other stuff. And then you look at the actual documents, you're like, whoa, this is crazy. And the things that he has said to people, that anybody else, you'd already be in jail. Like, there's no question. So this is a real come to Jesus moment for America as far as what they want to do, and if your institutions are going to endure. Because when you start, eroding away at these things,
they continue.
Law only for some people. Oh, go ahead, Cuz.
So
I was saying that will continue. The erosion will continue.
So let me
let me just say this. I think he will be found guilty. But I believe Biden will pardon him. That's it.
Okay, so I want to ask Keith about this. I just want to show you the article from the AP that Nas just mentioned. Special counsel got a search warrant for Twitter to turn over info on Trump's account, documents say. This was updated today at 5:51 p.m. by Alana Durkin-Richer. Special counsel Jack Smith's team obtained a search warrant in January for records related to former President Donald Trump's Twitter account, and a judge levied a $350,000 fine on the company for missing the deadline to comply, according to the documents released today. The new details were included in a ruling.
Order for him to turn over whatever it is they got to turn over. So that's my statement on that. My answer to your question.
Okay, so no, we just showed you that that's not true. We just showed you that Elon Musk, he may have resisted that for a while, but he lost today, and he has begun the process of turning over those direct messages to the courts.
Okay.
Let me show a comment. We got a comment from SH. S is in fan, H is in hotel. America saying America is doomed. Thank you, SH, for your comment. We're going to start our roundtable. We're out of time.
Wow.
I want to start with Keith, then Nas, then Aguna, and then Cousin Todd. We're going to talk about a few things. One thing I want to talk about is a judge. Let me share my screen. A judge.
You're not sharing it.
It's coming. It's
Oh,
coming.
okay.
This is
Speaking
technology.
of judges, Keith just said he resisted the judge's ruling, as if that's par for the course. You don't. If the judge said it, that's it.
Well, I want. It's important that our listeners hear this, because I think that what you're seeing and what's Keith is capitulating to is that if I like a candidate a lot, if I believe in this candidate so much, that candidate is above the law, and anything against this person is basically a conspiracy designed to go after this person. He's not looking at it from an American standpoint. This, our viewer just said America is doomed. And going back to what Nas was talking about, it's like when you undermine the very institutions that are designed to keep our democracy together, and all of a sudden there's an exception because some extremist is out here playing the victim, and then you have people who claim to be constitutional conservatives and things like that defending him, going against our democracy,
going against the laws of the land.
Where do you think he's going to go from here? I mean, all this evidence, all these charges, all these indictments, all this stuff is coming out. People who work for this guy
it's fraud.
Are all of a sudden coming back and saying, hey, he's a crook and all these things. He's talking bad about his former vice president. I mean, and you're seeing all this play out in front of America in dramatic fashion. Yet it's the system and not him who's consistent across all of these different factors.
I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose a voter.
Again, the era of the Trump is over. Let's move on from this guy. Let's move on from this guy.
Two things for roundtable. Judge temporarily exempts women from complicated pregnancies from Texas abortion ban. And the second, let's start with that one and make it quick because we have two. We're going to start with Keith. What does that say for abortion when we see that Ohio is tightening their laws?
Well, if they're tightening their laws, that sounds good to me. The states have the right.
No, that's not what I said. I said, look at that article. What does that say when we see Ohio tightening their laws? Ohio is a Republican-leaning state. Texas is a Republican-leaning state. Texas is saying they temporarily exempt women and allow them to have abortions. What does that say for Ohio, who is tightening their laws? Will they be doing the same type of thing? Basically, is what I'm asking.
Well, they may do it because of the fact that women, they're talking about circumstances. Women that isn't that what that article says? This is under certain circumstances.
Right. So exemptions under complex pregnancies.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that sounds reasonable to me. So what else?
Now you're saying abortion sounds reasonable.
Stacey, did you hear what I said? I said if a woman is having difficulties with a pregnancy, like, for example, if she's going to die, if the mother is going to die, then of course they need to save the life of the mother. Okay? Is that a problem?
Hey, so Stacey, real quick. So hold on, mute real quick, Stacey. So you heard what he just said.
Mute yourself, Stacey.
So you heard what he just said. He said it sounds reasonable to him that in case of complex pregnancies, which every pregnancy is complex, by the way. So I mean, I don't know what complex. What complex?
What gave you that idea? Every pregnancy? I don't think so.
Every pregnancy is complex.
Oh, it's not.
So you mean to tell me that a woman can't die by getting pregnant?
Not only die, That's an extremist die. But wait a minute. But I'll use my own mother, for example. She fell and she felt the baby flip. So the cord was wrapped around the baby's neck. Okay?
And
Is
so,
that a complicated pregnancy, dum-dum?
Yeah,
but see, this is the problem.
That doesn't mean
this is the problem, Keith. You're not a doctor, right? You're not a doctor. You're a novice that's saying, "Hey, I can judge. My opinion of complex pregnancy is this, that."
Well, let me.
That's why the government shouldn't be involved in it. It's a case-by-case basis. It's a private matter, so the government should stay out of it. The fact that they're doing this exemption is a slippery slope into going back against the abortion ban. Because what happens is, who determines what's complex and what's not? You can't. Even a doctor can't. So here's my last point is this. My last point is this. I want to make one last point, Stacey. Keith, your original position when it came to complex pregnancy, and going back a couple shows, you said, "Hey, you know what? It's up to the doctor to determine, not the woman, not the family." You're saying if it's a 50-50 chance that the baby can survive or the mother can survive, it's up to the doctor to determine who survives. Now you're saying it's up that you need to save the mother.
No, I'll finish my roundtable and say what I'm saying. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. And you up a bunch of different times.
Yeah, you have a very funny way of over talking, and you talk and try to add words into what I'm saying.
No, I'm just saying. I'm going back to what you're saying.
I said. Listen, viewers, and I still hold fast now. Listen, everybody, because he wants you to hear me and try to make me slip up. But I said what I say now. You do a good job. All of this is done in the room, in the delivery room, with the doctors and all the experts. They make the determination. Okay, if the mother's life is in jeopardy, of course you must save the life of the mother. If there is no other means, alternative to be able to save the baby and the mother. So whichever life is savable, that's the life that you go for. It's like if somebody is drowning in a pool or in an ocean or in a water, and there are two people, and I can only get to one person, I have to choose the one that is easiest to get to. Okay, simple as that. Now, why make
and again, you're proving my point because you just explained.
Okay, Aguna, you got to stop. I got to acknowledge it. We got to go.
The last point, Stacey, he just proved my point. You heard just how he explained that. That goes to show you that he has no business even talking about the subject. Because at the end of the day, if you have the doctor, the mother, the father, the family, their guide, the insurance companies, it's not going to be left up to a doctor to determine that. They're going to talk to the family and say, "Hey, you know what? There may be a small chance that you can save the wife and a big chance you save the baby." Right? That doesn't mean
thank you, Aguna. Aguna, you got to stop.
It's a private matter.
Sorry, sir.
Thank you.
You couldn't prove it.
Not for the bureaucracy, not for government, and certainly not for you.
Hold on. This is not really that complicated. So think about it like this: the Federalists,
but Aguna says it is,
and these other right-wing groups who went on a 40-year project decide they were going to. Well, Chief, can you hold on for a second?
Yeah, Aguna says it's complicated. I just
you said that before. Let's move on from that. You don't know what you're talking about. Go ahead now.
Appreciate it. So this was a 40-year project by the Federalist Society and other right-wing groups that they wanted to get this abortion ban. The trouble is, when you talk about MAGA and that extreme group on the right, this is only like 25 to possibly 30% of the population. These ideas aren't popular. And when you put these ideas out here, we saw this in the midterms where there was supposed to be this red wave happening, but because this bill was tied to it after Supreme Court advocacy for this idea of, just a total abortion ban, we saw them lose seat and lose a whole lot of favor with a lot of independents in this country and a lot of centrists in this country who looked at them as the ridiculous people that they were. So now here we are where Stacey talking about Ohio. Think about that. This is a Republican stronghold. Well, Ohio is looking at this and saying, wait a minute. We don't want to be involved with those people. Yeah, we have some ideas about how abortion could be better or care could be better, and access should be, looked at within a range of outcomes. But we don't want this just straight up canceling of it and this idea of it being banned and everything else. And people are voting with their feet, and they're showing you also that these states look at this long term and say, we don't want a brain drain of really competent women who are going to be college graduates who want to live their professional lives in other states because you're putting in these archaic laws that actually affect their lives. So, yeah, Keith, the problem is, you MAGA extremists, there's not enough of you. You got lucky in 2016, and you assumed you had a silent majority or a much bigger group of the populace than you actually do. And as we're seeing, through Joe Biden's term as president, that, you know what? Most folks just don't agree with y'all. They think you guys are insane. They think you're following a cult leader. And when we start talking about policy and you make these, homespun analogies that make no sense and really never relate to the policy, we figure out that you guys just got conned by Emperor with no clothes and everybody else can see it, but you can't.
So let me ask this question, Keith. I just want to ask you this question, Keith. And I'm trying to get on the screen, but I can't. So if Donald Trump, right, he's asking you to pay or help him with his funds for his legal team, right? And he owns a plane. Why does a man who owns a 737 or 747 need help from people to pay for his legal fees? Do you own a plane that you travel around the country in, Keith? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, you
Sorry,
got me.
Keith, let me take this out. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't. But Trump owns a plane. Yeah, that's great. Trump is a billionaire. Well, I guess he was a billionaire. I don't know if he is now. He's been spending a lot, which is the whole purpose of the all the lawsuits, is to drain him of his wealth so that they can really just punish him. And that, to me, in itself, is that's a travesty against our republic and our freedom, is what they're doing to Trump, because what they do to Trump, they can do to any one of us. And certainly we would be no match for the government as far as, going through all of the things that he's going through in the courts. So,
okay,
yeah.
but my question was, why would someone send in, if they're making $50,000 to $100,000 a year?
Yeah.
Why would they send in money to help a man who's a billionaire and has his own plane traveling around the country to help his legal fees?
Probably for the same reason. Here's the answer. For the same reason that they would do it for any other candidate that they like for instance, Biden, or any other candidate that you like, that you want to send money to. You have that prerogative.
You think people who voted for Biden would pay his legal bills? Are you insane?
Sure. They pay for Biden's son. Well, actually, he's not really being held accountable, is he? He's not really. So, why are you being silent? Silence me. Why can't I finish my sentence? Hello?
You're telling me you're a billionaire on one side, and then the other side of your mouth is money to pay his legal bills.
Okay, wait a minute, Nas. Go ahead, Keith. You got 1 minute. Go.
Okay, why isn't he being silent like me? All right, here's the whole thing. To answer your question again, I'll say it again. Anyone who wants to support a candidate, any candidate, may give money as they choose. Okay, so there it is. And whatever the campaign finance laws are that they have to follow, I am not familiar with, but that's the way it is. So I don't know why.
So then why did you just have me? Wait, Nas. Why did you just have me say you didn't finish your point, and then you just repeated the same point that you had already finished?
Because that's the same thing everybody. I just want equal opportunity. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being truthful. Look at the screen. This is the last part of our roundtable. We'll start with Keith, then Nas, Aguna, and Cousin Todd. The brawl this weekend in Alabama. 3 white men in pontoon boat charged in Montgomery brawl, the black man with chair sought for questioning. What happened was a pontoon boat was docked in Montgomery, Alabama. A bigger steamboat that travels up and down this river and offers a dinner cruise was coming to dock. The pontoon boat was in the way of the gigantic boat, and so the pontoon boat captain asked the gigantic boat captain asked the smaller pontoon boat, much smaller boat, could you move back so that we could come and dock? They said no. So the co-captain of the gigantic 3-story boat got into a little boat and went over to the dock and tried to talk and reason with the smaller boat's crew. And they were just, people in shorts. It wasn't like an official crew boat. And they still would not move their boat. So I believe the co-captain of that boat went to move their docking moors and their ropes, but although I didn't see that in the videos. And as he was talking to the people who were on the smaller boat, one of the people on the smaller boat physically attacked him and a fight broke out. Start with Keith, then Nas, then Aguna, and then Cousin Todd.
Okay, before they start, you made it seem like one person attacked him. No, the group of racist white people attacked him. It was a group of them.
Okay, Keith.
All right. Well,
it started out with one person attacking him, and then the whole group jumped him. Were they correct in doing that? And should they have been arrested immediately, as opposed to them being held, released, and then them telling themselves, hey, turn yourself in when you get a chance if you're not busy. If you're not busy, can you turn yourself in? And, we'll just put you through the process. But they didn't give that chance to the Black people they have killed by putting their knee on their neck.
Well, based on the law of self-defense that I understand as a professional in this area, first of all, he should not have provoked. I think it may have been more provocative for him to remove the moors or remove
this
ropes.
boy.
Remember, you notice what you said, Stacey.
Tell him, Tom.
Hello, sir. Let me finish.
Go ahead, Tom.
Hope you remember what you said. He did not. The video did not show him removing, the ropes. Okay, so that perhaps provoked those men. He should have left it alone and just called the police or whatever. Deal with it.
If he did that, that's just what I heard. But I read and I couldn't see him literally removing.
They weren't supposed to park there. That was reserved for the cruise ship.
They had film showing him removing.
So after that, basically he dealt with it was he and that man fighting. Okay, then here come the other guys jumping in. So that was on their part.
Stacey,
now I hate to see every time we see a white man versus a black man, we think it's a racist situation. I mean, that's a terrible. I mean, this men fighting.
Keith, have you seen the video?
Yeah, I saw the video. I'm saying every time we see white men and black men fighting, it's always a racism against
them. They had, even if he removed the Moors, even if he removed those, they have no right to punch him.
No, I didn't say he did.
They have no right to attack. Even if you're provoked, if I'm provoked, if I say something to you, you have no right to hear that.
That's not what I said. All I said was
you said they were provoked. He was provoked. He shouldn't have provoked them. That's what you said.
Is a wise decision, and that's what
okay. Thank you. Let Keith finish because we're out of time. You got to let him finish. You have to sum it up, Keith, because you've been going on and on and on. Sum it up in 2 words. No, I let you go, Keith, and then I asked you a question. But you got 2 words, and then I'm moving on to Nas.
Avoidance. Avoid a fight.
Yeah, don't hit somebody.
Yeah.
Nas.
Don't punch somebody who's a security guard doing his job.
Unlike other people who take a very long time to tell us anything. So basically, this is an order of importance issue. When you have a dock like that in a small town and a hotel's dinner boat, basically thing that brings money into your local economy. You saw those black folks out there in their Sunday best. They couldn't wait to get on that dinner boat and have themselves a good time. His brother, who's only doing his job, has to get that area open. Now, if you have to get that area open, who are you choosing to have to move? Either the important hotel boat where everybody's going to get on it, or this family boat where they just decided that even though you're giving them orders to move, that they don't have to move. Now, the thing turned ugly for them when they decided not only were they not going to listen to the brother, once he told them, like, yo, this is a really big deal, you guys have to move, he started to, as you said, mess with the Morrises to get them out of there. They started to attack him and fight him. Problem was, they didn't understand where they were. All those black folks saw these three white men jumping on this black dude. So immediately, the cavalry came. The brother threw his head in the air. The young 16-year-old brother jumped in the water and swam over like Aquaman. The brothers came out the woodworks and they started putting on a show. Punches to the left, punches to the right, all kinds of people getting knocked on sight. And then the WWE brother grabbed the chair. And he started.
Oh, that was horrible. That was wrong to do. That was wrong to do.
Oh, shut up and mind your own business.
Now the woman maybe, but the other.
That was wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong. That woman was down. He had no business hitting that woman on the head. She was already down.
Shut up, Tom.
You're stepping on the punchline. So this WWE fan, I'm assuming, hitting everybody in the head with the chair. He hit one guy in the head 3 times with the chair. Didn't drop him. So I guess he assumed that the chair wasn't that effective. And he went over, and the woman who was minding her business, wasn't doing anything. Anybody she had out of the fight has was respected all across the field. And he decided to give her a lick too. Hit her in the head with the chair. And that's the thing that's going to get that brother some time. Like, he's going to get locked up, no question. He's going to come out as an internet celebrity doing a podcast with a chair in the background, and he's going to be internet famous.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully he can monetize it.
Thank you, Aguna. Now, that was wrong. That I do not condone him hitting that woman over the head with the chair. That was wrong. But I got to make it clear. Go ahead, Aguna.
But here's the thing, too, because they were coming from an area of privilege, right? So when women, and particularly white women, who in that situation, you're sitting there, there's a brawl going on, guys are fighting. Why are you throwing punches, too? You should be trying to get out to safety or get away from that situation. Those women were throwing punches, too, and trying to get in there and doing all kinds of what Keith would say provocative things to entice that brawl to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, the provocation was parking where you shouldn't have belonged to begin with. That's the provocation right there. So everything after that, from the security guard releasing the Moors and trying to do, because again, you're talking about a huge riverboat trying to dock. They were docking to get out because, again, if they don't dock in time, it's going to impact the next cruise going out. So they were
right. And they didn't say to them, leave. They just said, move over so we could get in. They never told them they had to leave the area.
And those people, not only did they not move, they attacked the security guard, like Nas said, and stuck around.
He was a co-captain. He wasn't the security guard. He was a co-captain.
Well, a co-captain, whatever he was, they were so naive to the situation where not only did they fight him, they stuck around and waited for the boat to dock, and then those folks came off like a red wave, and they just came and overwhelmed. I mean, what do you think was going to happen? Now, unfortunately, because of social media, it's going to be a black-white thing, of course, and part of it is because, again, why did they feel empowered to attack this guy? Why did they feel empowered to remain around? And then they had the nerve to be crying afterwards once they got stomped.
Okay, thank you, Aguna. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Nas. Cousin Todd, why didn't the Montgomery police do any type of breathalyzer, any type of test on whether or not these people were drinking and what their blood alcohol levels were, since they were operating a boat?
Okay. To answer a few of those questions, why did they feel emboldened to do that? Because they had a president named Donald Trump and he emboldens people to do that.
My question. That wasn't my question.
That was what Aguna was asking that question. So your question is a silly one. Those boys are white. They're not going to get a breathalyzer test. Grow up. Where do you think you're living? In Africa? Anyway.
You're saying in Africa they would get a breathalyzer test?
No, ma'am. I just asked you, did you think you were living there? So nevertheless.
That made no sense.
No, but Keith does, of course. So listen, Miss Tom, what I'm saying is they didn't even get arrested that night. So what do you mean? Why didn't they give him a breathalyzer? They're not going to do that unless they look like you or Keith or his mother. But no, they're not going to give those white boys any breathalyzer. They should have been hauled off to jail. But they weren't. And it reminded me of Trayvon Martin, because his killer looked white enough. They let him go home. Then it put me in the mind of the sick freak that went into the church and shot all those black people that were catering to him. And what the police did with him is ask him, "Hey, son, are you hungry?" He said, "Yeah, I'm kind of hungry, guys." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. How do you like Burger King?" And he said, "Well, I like it." And he said, "Well, it's on me."
Well, I thought it was McDonald's.
No, he liked Burger King better. So they drove an extra couple of miles to get him what he wanted. And you asked a dumb question. Why didn't they give him a breathalyzer? Give me a break.
I have a question. Since we're talking about Stacey, since we're
boats on that same river in the 1800s. And what's so sad is, why can't we just all get along? Why do we have to?
Because one group decided they want to.
Because the Democrats hate.
There you go, Keith. Stop.
The whole world saw this fight. Do you all know the whole world is talking about this fight and thinking America is still very racist? That doesn't say much for our history, and it doesn't say much for how far we have come since slavery. But we're out of time. We've gone over. To our first responders in our communities, you make our lives livable. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the women and men of the U.S. military for all that you do in sacrificing your life so that we are free to allow Todd to call me Mrs. Tom. We are forever indebted.
The truth
On behalf
hurts.
of Guna,
Chair.
Nigerian,
Smash.
not a Republican. Keith, the constitutional
White man's heaven. Here I
conservative.
come. White man's heaven.
Stephen, the independent thinker who's not with us tonight. Nas,
Yeah,
we
quiet
needed
is.
you, Todd said, and we thank you for joining us. And my cousin Todd.
Button up that shirt.
I'm Stacey Johnson. Let's keep this conversation going on X, Twitch, Threads, Instagram. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, where this is broadcast live every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. And check us out on Stephanie Stallworth's The Flow Television Network. We'll see you next week at 7:30. Good night.
I don't know. What do you keep going on about this shirt for? It's not even that open.
Stop. You don't want to see that hamburger helper. You got the little hamburger helper.
Ma'am,
It's just there.
Is it racist for blacks to kill other blacks and beat up other blacks?
So, look, Keith, relax. Stacey, what's going on with the audio?
No, I'm just asking. I want to put
The political show is over with, Keith. We know you don't like black people, Keith. We know. Stacey, so do you hear the echo?
Can you answer that?
No, I understand what he's saying. It's hard to hear him over all the tap dancing. I think he
I'm just wondering if blacks, when blacks kill other blacks, is that racist?
Nobody's talking to you, Tom.
Keith, man.
When blacks commit
We
assault,
look, Keith. This is a futile point because what's going to happen, Keith, is you're not going to look at the statistics because whites kill other whites more than blacks kill other blacks.
No, not true.
You kill more of the demographic you're associated.
True. Stop
true.
saying that.
We got blacks
Whites
dying.
don't kill other whites more than blacks kill blacks.
Blacks are killing blacks at a
So
alarming
let me show you why your logic is flawed, Keith. If white people are more of the population, why wouldn't more white people kill more white people than black people kill black people? It's just statistically, I mean, you're wrong. You're using the same conservative talking point. I mean, I thought they got rid of that thing 10 years ago, but you're still bringing it back today. What about Chicago? What about this? What about that?
And you know what? You know what you can do to prove that? All you have to do is ask Google, does whites kill more whites or does blacks kill more blacks? Just Google that, Keith. But didn't say that was wrong.
There are more white people in the country than there are black people.
All right, good night.
And we should have Stacey, maybe next week, we're going to talk about Niger and this idea of certain African states deciding they're not going to take this anymore from France and pushing them out, and other states being kind of coerced and I would say outright bribed.
So before we talk about that,
that would be a great topic.
Wait a minute, Aguna. Wait a minute. Somebody tell the audience, what are you talking about? I mean, make it plain. Niger is a West African country whose president, who was a philosophy professor, was his administration was taken over by a coup by the general of the armed forces in Niger. And it's Niger. It used to be a French colony. They speak French. So let's talk from the basics so people know what you're talking about.
The U.S. troop station.
We can talk about it next week, but as of right now, that's what we're looking at. So France is trying to still re-engage and get other nations on their side, kind of put pressure on them to relieve him of duty and get things back to what they are. So just look up the RFA Accords, where these nations are basically coerced at gunpoint to not only let the French run their economy, but also decide where the resources go, and all of the mines are owned by French companies.
But what resources are in Niger that would be of interest to any country for those people who do not know?
Yeah, Stacey, if you just let me finish, I can tell you the points I want to get to. We're talking about uranium. We're talking about gold. We're talking about very valuable resources that the French don't actually possess on their own. And the only way they have access to this thing is based on the idea of modern day colonies. And the way that they get away with it is they put a lot of money into the side they want as far as who the politician is running the country. And typically when they lose an election to a populace from that country that doesn't want to sign on to the deal, that person is killed. These are stories we've told for a long time about colonialism and how that works. But we're going to talk about this more because I think it's not getting enough right because we can really get into France's input.
And it is a complicated
over the past 20 years.
And it is a complicated issue, especially when you talk about the Wagner Group and you talk about Echo Mob and you talk about all of that complexity. Stacey, you got to do something about that echo. I don't know what's going on.
I don't hear an echo, but I'll put it on mute. Go ahead.
So when you talk about the Wagner Group's influence and toppling the government, right? Because again, if you look at Russia, they don't want, again, anti-colonialism for their own interest, right? So destabilizing and getting Niger, broken away from France is to their best interest because that's, of course, a thumb in the eye of NATO and whatever. But then you look at Echo Mob, and Nigeria is one of the primary members of Echo Mob, which is is an African NATO equivalent. And they just voted not to use force because, again, France and Great Britain and the U.S. were pressuring Nigeria and other African countries to go in there and to, basically go to war in order to reestablish that government. Nigeria just voted. Their senators basically said, no, we're not going in there, even though the president gave them an ultimatum. But they did it because Nigeria itself isn't very stable with a lot of the other things that are going on. Now, you do have U.S. soldiers stationed in Nigeria. You got French soldiers They have permanent bases in Nigeria because of the war on terror and things like that. So this is a very complicated issue, but it does go speak to what Nas was talking about. There's a change in the world order, especially when it comes to these sub-Saharan African countries, with the the changing of the influence of China, Russia, India, and with the West a little bit in turmoil. You're seeing rise to these different types of populist or more strongmen. And again, they're following the Donald Trump model. You think that this is only going to happen in these sub-Saharan African nations, but it's unfolding in front of our eyes here. And how can we be the beacon of light on the hill, shining hill, when we can't even uphold justice in our own country? So you're going to see a lot more of these coups happening. You're going to see groups like the Wagner Group, mercenary groups, influencing these different African countries to you have this power grab going on. So it's going to be interesting to see how this folds out over the next 5-10 years, because it's just the beginning. Keith, we can't hear you, and I don't think we want to. Something about Hunter Biden.
Ever have, and that's just going to be a problem. You're going to have some nations who turn towards the east, whether it's China, Russia, or India, like he said. They're going to seek not only influence from them, because when they leave, you have a port now. Now you have a way to access the material that you have, and also you can have finished goods. Another big problem with some of the things that the French have done there is when they lock you into these deals, one part of it is you can't have finished goods from whatever material your country produces.
Right. That's happening in Nigeria a lot too.
Your companies take it, finish the goods, and then send them back to you to sell at a markup. That's the small percentage of stuff that you're able to access. So these colonial arrangements are going to be changed, and hopefully it doesn't come with a lot of bloodshed and war and, turn into this thing to where people are fighting for their allies. And, that's how we got to World War II, where basically one move triggered another, and then people kept, stepping up for the allies. Before you knew it, everybody's pointing guns at it.
These proxy wars. You had a cascading of proxy wars.
Okay, thank you. Good night. We're out of time. Good night. See you next week.
Good night.